Good morning, everyone. It's Old Soldier coming at you again today from Robeson County, North Carolina, where it got cold. It is cold. And on that note, I will say, staying in an RV when it gets below 40 degrees is rather interesting. You know, I did run my furnace last night. Kept it at about 66, 67 degrees so it wouldn't run all night. Because it runs off propane. Average use right now, we're replacing one 20-pound bottle a month, or refilling. But I got a feeling it may go to every 2 weeks if I have to run this furnace on a semi-regular basis. Rather than invest in two 30-pound bottles, but neither here nor there on that issue. Just useless, trivial information for you to think about. But what we have discovered and what I've been researching, that when it gets cold in the camper, especially in a humid environment, the windows sweat. So that's a new chore to the chore list, is to get up in the morning, wipe the window sills down to minimize or mitigate interior damage. So yeah, it is what it is, folks. Anyway, in other news, if you've noticed in my description link, I've added my Parlor link. If y'all haven't gone over and checked out Parlor or gone on to Parlor, go give it a whirl. It's a social media site by conservatives for conservatives. Okay? I started to notice a lot of former, some still work for, but I think their time there is limited. Fox News employees are broadcasting on Parler. America First News, Bill O'Reilly, One American News, and Newsmax are all now competing with Fox for the conservative market, if you will. Which makes me ponder the question, how much longer is Tucker Carlson going to stay at Fox News? Given Fox News' shift. I noticed one that's already made the change. One of their Fox and Friends First in the Morning host, Rob Schmidt, back in August just stopped appearing on Fox News and has moved over to Newsmax. So I think there's some people starting to see the tide change there as well and moving. But anyway, just check out the Parlor app, folks, if you haven't yet. If you decide to join up with Parlor, you can find my handle at Rants of an Old Soldier. Rants of an Old Soldier. That's my Parlor handle. But anyway, because the tech giants are doing everything in their power to silence conservatives. We know that. Facebook, I've noticed there's certain news and media outlets that advertise or have sites on Facebook that you can go into your settings and hide. And then there's ones that they won't let you do that to. And they kind of go along the lines, if they're Antifa related or Black Lives Matter related or left-wing Liberal Communist Party of America related, you can hit the hide post and hide site all day long and it won't go away. Some are out right now, they won't even put the settings dots on them. Thought that was interesting. I don't know if anybody else has noticed that. Of course, Twitter, I don't get much on Twitter, but they're doing along the same lines, and everybody else knows Instagram's owned by Facebook. Power of the press, they say. Manipulate stories is what they do now. There is no objective or honest reporting or journalism anymore. One thing I do admire about Carlson Tucker, he'll tell it like it is. And he's called out his own peers repeatedly. He's called them out for their lack of integrity, their biased reporting. And we're starting to see that divide now in the nation. If you don't believe it, folks, look at the numbers. They say Joe Biden got 77 million in the popular vote. President Trump got about 72. I call about 5 million of those votes into question for Joe Biden. It's just my thought process there, which roughly equates that those that voted, we roughly divided evenly in the country. So now, can you imagine if Nancy Pelosi and Ocasio-Cortez and Ilhan Omar and all them turds in Congress were to get a bill passed giving illegal immigrants the right to vote? That's one other reason I call the 5 million votes into question. How many were cast by illegal immigrants that had false registrations? It's a theory. Got no proof. It's just a theory. But my point being, that's going to be their next step if they manage to get things passed in the House. From what I'm understanding, even though the conservatives didn't take control of the House, they did win enough seats that anything that they're going to want to get passed in the House is going to be cantankerous at best. The Senate, who knows how it's going to go until the Georgia elections are over. Right now, it's 50-48. If Georgia, 2 seats go Democrat, then it's a tie. Senate really, Mitch McConnell loses his power because we got that one ignorant lady that voted with the Democrats on several things against President Trump. You got the senator from West Virginia that states he won't go along with any stupid legislation proposed by his party. As far as I'm concerned, all the legislation that comes from his party is stupid this day and age. I'll be honest with you, I thought for a while he was actually going to switch parties. Really did. But I think he fooled us all. If, however, this hand recount in Georgia comes through and the 2 senators from Georgia stay conservative, then Mitch McConnell maintains a narrow majority, much like Nancy Pelosi does in the House right now. Notice I say conservative. I don't even want to use the name Republican anymore, because the party leadership there is just about as corrupt as the DNC's party right now. But they're still more closely aligned to conservative values. So there you have it. But there was also something going around yesterday that Congress issued a letter to Joe Biden stating that he is not the president-elect. What's that mean in layman's terms? Just a fancy letter stating we hadn't certified the vote yet, so technically you're not the president-elect. That's all it's saying. Am I doubting that he's not? Well, I don't know with this election. I really don't. One minute you hear that the president's lawsuits in several states are being dropped or dismissed, then turn around and hear another report that he's gained ground on some of them. It's just hard to say which news source is telling the truth and which one. Well, none of them are. So it's hard to gauge what the truth actually is. And then you start to compound it with the inept, incompetent, and corrupt leadership in several agencies within the federal government. And like I pointed to yesterday, was it last week? Anyway, about the federal employment versus political appointment. Many of these operatives, and I'm calling what they are, the Communist Socialist Party of America. Yep, that's the new name for the Democratic Party in my book, Communist Socialist Party of America. Might as well call the bastards what they are. Apologize for my language. But many of their operatives, if you will, their Manchurian candidates, their sleeper cells, if you will, were planted. And I'm speculating, but I think it's a good theory, and very plausible, that many were seated during the Johnson administration. Oh, old soldier, you're going way back. Yeah, I am. Because then we were at the height of the Cold War with the Soviet Union, the largest communist country in the world at the time, and an adversary at that. So it wouldn't surprise me that many got their hooks into their federal employment seats then. And then they move up the ladder to positions of supervisory nature, to positions where they have the authority to hire. They begin to hire like-minded individuals, people within their own community they've been introduced to that have the same values and principles. I won't say morals because the communists don't believe in morals. Don't believe me? Go look up Lenin and what he believed in. He darn sure wanted to eradicate the church. He really didn't care if a man and woman were really truly married. All be said, they're all pretty much along the lines that really that children ought to have been raised in institutes, not in homes of mothers and fathers. Why? Easier to control. Because then their allegiance is to the party and not mommy and daddy, not to family, not to friends. So I'd say, like I said, far back as at least the Johnson administration, these people started getting their hooks in. And they began to grow, and they began to wait for their opportunities. And I believe that President Trump in his second term probably had a plan to start adjusting employment and termination policies in the federal government. Again, like I said, I don't think they should go without protection, but many of the protections they have are quite a bit drastic. So that's why I admired Reagan when the air traffic controllers went on strike. He was a firm believer that they were public service and therefore had, especially the position that they were in, had no right to strike. Now, some will argue with me otherwise, and that's fine, but my point being this is that he fired them. Military air traffic controllers were called in to fill the void. Now, memory serves me correct, and somebody can validate this or tell me where I've erred, but I believe that they had to hire the majority of them back. I could be wrong about that, but there's something tells me Something I remember that they were rehired. My point being is Reagan wasn't afraid to act, because he looked at it as a safety issue amongst the nation, that if they went on strike, you've got all these planes coming in and out, and all these airports, not only for commerce, but people, families. It became a safety issue. Was firing them the right answer? I don't know. I was just a kid then. But I remember my dad, who had been a federal employee and a public servant, basically stating that they really had no right to strike. And we could argue the principles of going on strike versus not for as public servants. But again, my whole thing is that the ability to terminate a federal employee, especially after they've got 3 or 4 years in and they gain tenure, it's just a pain to get to fire one. It's not impossible. I've known a few at Fort Bragg that were terminated, but the majority I know of just they send them somewhere else, to another directorate, to another agency. That's a mess that's going to have to be cleaned up. And if Biden is actually certified and becomes the next president, Kamala Harris is not going to do nothing when she becomes president. She's going to allow it to go. Notice my transition there, right? I still firmly believe that if Biden is declared the winner, he won't be president much longer after inauguration. We'll see how this thing turns out as the president and his attorneys continue to fight this. And I pray he doesn't concede this election. And hopefully all this voter fraud will fully be exposed. And the thing is, you've got several people giving eyewitness testimony to what they saw. Judges need to hear this testimony. These videos where poll watchers are being denied access needs to be considered as evidence. If you don't have anything to hide, what's the problem with them coming in and doing what they're supposed to be doing? I'd like to know. Inquiring minds want to know. I'll close on this, and it just deals with the Second Amendment, folks. Most of you that watch this channel probably have already found out the same thing I found out. Ammunition is getting hard to find right now. Most of your dealers and manufacturers cannot even predict now as to when they'll be able to restock shelves. For those that have ammunition in stock, many have inflated their prices. A buddy of mine texted me last night, "Hey, you know anywhere to get some 9mm ammo?" I texted him back, "If you ain't got none, you're Biden out of luck." See that play on words too? That's what I told him. And I gave him a link to a couple sites that stated last night they still had ammunition in stock. But whether you wanted to pay the price for what they were asking, that's a different story. It remains to be seen. Even reloading supplies, from what I understand, are getting hard to find. And somebody I was talking to the other day said primers are in short supply. So yeah, the snowball effect from the virus is real. But the snowball effect is not because of the virus itself. It's because we got pansies in government that are forcing people to stay home when in reality they could be at work. And the worthless governor of this state here in North Carolina is among them. But anyway, folks, y'all take care of yourselves. Be safe out there. Watch out for one another. And until tomorrow, God bless. Take care. Soldier out.